I call the honourable member Paul Goldsmith.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's my pleasure to speak on this, the State-Owned Enterprises Amendment Bill and Public Finance Mixed Ownership Model Amendment Bill. And given the heat from the other side, it's hard to think that this is the Labour Party that were quite happy to have the mixed ownership model for Air New Zealand for all that time. It's hard to think this is the same Labour Party that Mr. Cunliffe was a member of only in 2010 when he said to the Institute of Policy Studies, "In a capital-constrained environment, Labour will better leverage the Crown's balance sheet in new and innovative ways. We need to unleash SOEs to create and grow them with private partners and private shareholders." That was Mr. Cunliffe only 2 years ago. But now they're manufacturing a great deal of heat over this opposition, and it makes me wonder why they're doing it. Maybe they feel that the Greens are breathing down their necks and they're panicking, and now they're trying to get very excited about this. And I suppose the question is, will they buy it back when they get the opportunity? I'm not sure that they will. So why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? We're doing it to reduce our need for borrowing in dangerous global financial environment. We need to build a more competitive and productive economy based on savings and investment and away from debt borrowed from foreign lenders. It's about controlling our destiny, Mr. Speaker, by keeping the total amount of government debt under control. And we watch the travails in some European countries, and too often we assume it could never happen to us. Well, why not? New Zealand is heavily exposed in private debt, and that's why it's critical that our government debt remains as low as possible. And so our mixed ownership model policy is part of a wider economic program to reduce debt, increase savings, and to get our country through one of the worst economic crises in 100 years. And there's so much that we want to invest in this country, and this ownership structure will free up $5 to $7 billion to invest in the future investment fund in new high-priority infrastructure projects, and that's why it makes good sense. Another benefit from this bill, as we've heard, will be that it will help deepen New Zealand's capital market, extending ours into an ownership society. It's a policy that will boost the New Zealand stock market and broaden the pool of investment for New Zealanders. And that's important because that's how our companies will get the opportunity for more capital to grow further and to add more jobs if we have a more effective capital market. And thirdly, the most important aspect of this bill for me is that by introducing a share of private sector investment, this bill will strengthen the companies involved. By bringing those companies private sector scrutiny and governance, the tenor of the debate from the other side of the House has been anti-business, anti-private enterprise. Profit is a dirty word. Private enterprise is all about putting prices up, ripping people off, they say. Private enterprise, they don't care about customers. They say no. It just goes to show that Labour and the Green members on the other side have no idea about the reality of businesses. If a company is always more expensive than the opposition when providing the same thing, it will go out of business. That's how market capitalism works. And a company will only be successful for its shareholders, half the Crown and the private sector, if it services its customers well. And to do that, they need to be as efficient as possible and look after their own staff. The only time that basic law of capitalism doesn't apply is if the state controls the provision of the goods and services and if there isn't healthy production. And I commented in the committee stage when I quoted David Lange when he referred to state trading enterprises that his government inherited in the 1980s, when he said, David Lange, that they were ludicrously overstaffed, horribly overcapitalised, just embarrassments because they were used. So the SOEs that we have today are infinitely, and they went on to do more effective things and actually spent their lives doing something productive. That's what it was about. So we have a situation where we have an electricity market today which is working very effectively. In 14 out of the 21 regions in New Zealand today, the Power Switch website indicates that it's the privately owned company which is the cheapest. And in the past year, 422,256 customers have changed retailers. So that indicates to me that we have a very effective market working, and that's the key to it. Finally, I wanted to say, if ever there was a policy that was clearly spelt out by a party coming into an election with a clear mandate, this is such a policy. We didn't hide our light under a bushel. We came out in January 2011 and said, this is our policy. Labour's entire campaign was focused on saying that this was going to happen. The Greens were opposed to it vigorously, and what happened? We had a very strong, clear mandate, the strongest polling result from any party in MMP's history. And I'm not surprised that most people are now turning their attention to buying it. Now, what do they expect us to do? To go back on our word? We made a clear indication prior to the election. We're going to stick with what we promised we will do, which is carrying through this mixed ownership model. And we've also heard a lot of nonsense about the process, the select committee process, which I was involved with. I heard every single one of the submissions was a fair and detailed and extensive process. Now, finally, I just wanted to, we're looking forward to hearing Winston Peters speaking next, and so I'll be very interested to hear him tell the House tell the House how back in 1988 he's got Shane Jones, his next deputy, behind him, I see, the 1998 prospectus for Auckland Airport, signed off by the then Deputy Prime Minister and Treasurer, Mr Peters, when he said that we're very pleased with the most successful public sale. It's popular capitalism in action. So I'll be very interested to hear from him as to what's changed in the last 12 years, when he was quite happy to sell that, and now he's so strongly opposed to any of these things. You're looking forward to this. I believe that this is an excellent policy, and I'm very glad that we've finally made the third reading of this bill, and I commend it to the House. Thank you.
Speaker.
I call the Right Honourable Winston